everyone, it's me, Ivy, and today we are talking about the third episode of the new series of Doctor Who, titled Boom by Stephen Moffat. Now, if you weren't here last week for my review of Space Babies and the Devil's Cord, I'm switching things up a bit this year. I'm using top-tier technology consulting experts to predict the quality or kind of how things will turn out for the new episodes. And that involves my cats, random slips of paper, and tarot cards. So we're gonna go ahead and play my prediction for this episode, and then I'll give you my thoughts on how it turned out. Our third prediction is for Boom, and when we asked the random slips of paper whether or not this episode was going to be good, it said yes. However, it ran into a bit of opposition because my cat, Athena, answered no. Now, Athena is an old cat, and she is quite the queen, so I was a little nervous when I saw this no, you guys. I was even more nervous when I pulled the tarot card, which was the Five of Cups. Some things associated with this card are feelings of grief, disappointment, sadness, feeling let down, something being different than it was expected, and being incapable of moving on. So it's not a great card to pull, but it did really help me pull together a prediction for this episode. This episode is Moffat's return to the show as a writer, and I think that people are going to have really, really high expectations for that, and I do not think this episode is going to meet those expectations, or at the very least, it's going to be a lot different from what people are expecting, and that's going to cause a lot of feelings of disappointment. The episode itself, it's a bit harder to say. Again, we're getting those mixed signals between the random slips of paper and my cat Athena, but I think my decision for how to read that is I think the episode will be poorly received at first, and then go through a reappraisal later once we've kind of gotten over those high expectations. Sounds like they've got some really cool concepts of some monsters that can't quite be seen, and this card especially makes me think that maybe those concepts won't really live up to their potential. So it's a bit mixed on this episode. I'm going to predict that at the very least, it's not going to start on a good foot in the eyes of viewers, in my eyes, but maybe in a little bit down the line, we may see it for what it truly is, rather than what we were setting it up to be. I'm sure a lot of you watching that prediction were not agreeing with it, and I'm very happy to say that I did not agree with my overall prediction. First of all, Athena, I love her. She was wrong. I'm convinced maybe she's just secretly a Moffat hater, but the episode was amazing, and I don't think my prediction ended up ringing true. Now, I do think some elements of the tarot card, now, bear with me here because I'm stretching the narrative to fit and justify my use of tarot cards. Some elements of it sort of did end up being correct. Okay, grief, we had the dad dying. Okay, and then things turning out to be not what they seem. That could allude to the twist of the episode and the war. So, you know, I still think my technology and my experts are, you know, everybody makes mistakes. Anyway, let's talk about what I thought about how the episode actually turned out, which was amazing. This episode was so amazing. I actually, around the middle, had to pause it and get up and just, like, run around my house. I actually ran into a door, which is a whole other story, but I mean, I literally had to pause it to process everything that was going on. It was that good. It was so tense. Like, I felt like I could barely breathe throughout the episode, and it felt like the episode itself was so long, even though it has a relatively short runtime for these days, because it had so much of that tension. It was also so contained, and I don't just mean in the literal sense that the location was very contained, but the story itself I thought was contained quite well. I didn't feel like it was trying to do too much. I didn't feel like it did too little. Really, outside of a few elements, I think everything played out quite well, and it worked out. There's a noise. The scenery and the set were absolutely gorgeous. I really liked that they added the fog robots so that we could see the alien planet and Ruby could sort of get a proper glimpse at it. And there were so many iconic lines and callbacks from Stephen Moffat in this episode. I loved it. I loved it. My favorite one, if I had to pick, was the Doctor saying, "I am a complex space-time event." I loved that. I'm probably gonna write that out in Circular Gallifreyan. There was a lot of greatness in this episode, and I'm gonna talk about a few specific things in more depth, because the episode overall I very much enjoyed, but there's a lot more elements that I can get into more. Firstly, the side characters. I absolutely adored all of the side characters, especially Verada showing up. I was not expecting that, and I know we won't really know the involvement of her character probably for a while, but I would not be surprised at all if it was similar to Donna, in that she simply played a character in this episode and they realized her potential and saw her amazing work in this episode and decided to call her back as a companion, because she was excellent, absolutely excellent in this episode, and really all of the side characters were. I thought the romance was a little bit unneeded. It does add, some heart to the episode, but I thought there was enough heart to the episode with Splice and Monday and Splice's dad, so it just felt a little bit out of place, but overall, I really liked the side characters and their story here. Doctor and Ruby is something I very much want to talk about here. Boom gave us some much needed, and on my part, much wanted conflict and tension between Ruby. Not anything super drastic, obviously, but you have Ruby very directly opposing the Doctor's orders and making her own choice for what she wants to do and thinks is best in that situation, and I loved that. Really, the Doctor being in such a unique position where he has such a lack of control over the general situation while he's trying to keep control of not exploding was so tense and so amazing, and I think it really gave Ruby a chance to kind of shine in her own light. Now, she was obviously sort of taken out of the plot fairly early on, and I kind of wish things were different in that respect. I wish we had gotten a bit more time with her in that sort of unique role that she was in that episode, but I liked this addition to their dynamic. Seeing the Doctor getting more and more stressed as the episode is going on and trying to sort of command the situation from his very limited position, and it just not really working, and Ruby trying to do her best, and things are getting worse and worse and worse, and then obviously she gets shot, and there's a lot going on with that, and that was the point where I had to get up and run around the house. But also him still talking to her even though she was dying. He's like, I need to be talking to you, to his companion. That was amazing. I loved that part of the episode. I loved their relationship, and I loved how we got a lot more depth to it this time around. The main thing that I want to talk about for this episode is the inclusion and discussion and exploration of capitalism. This, to me, was a very proper exploration and inclusion of politics rather than just a throwaway line like we got in Space Babies. And my God, is it effective and incredible. One day I'm going to try and do a proper analyzation of this episode from the perspective of its capitalist elements, because there are so many layers here. Really quick, eye makeup check. Okay, back to it. Drawing on the inherent connections between war and profit and war and capitalism, and including a corporation that fearmongers a military, a religiously affiliated one at that, into literally fighting nothing, but still falling over themselves and shelling out into buying their products, the same products that are actively killing them. The idea of death by salesman, the inclusion of thoughts and prayers being this sort of empty offering in place of real, authentic help. Ambulances and, at a stretch, corporations and governments killing those that they deem expendable because their long-term care and support is not profitable to them. Yeah, there's a lot. And I really commend such a biting and overarching inclusion of this stuff. I'm gonna have to talk about this in depth later, because I really enjoyed it. I thought it was very realistic, and I just am in awe of it, frankly. The conversation about the AI elements in the episode, as well as the religious elements in the episode, I think are definitely conversations that need to be had For me, I feel like I really need to have a lot more discussion and see other people's thoughts on it and sort of think about it a bit more before I can make a more formal stance on those things. I will say for now, I didn't think the episode was necessarily overly anti-religion. I think it was quite a happy medium there, especially with the doctor sort of saying, it's not for me, but I can recognize it's for you and the importance it has in your life. I thought that was quite nice, especially because Doctor Who in the past has been a little bit dismissive, and I say a little bit, but dismissive of religion in several cases, so I thought that that was a nice happy medium to include there. When it came to the AI, I didn't quite view it as good AI beating bad AI. Rather, I viewed it as the doctor taking advantage of the AI's programming to essentially make it eat itself alive. But again, these are things I want to explore and discuss a bit more, and I would love to get your thoughts on it. In general, I want to hear your thoughts about the episode. I think unanimously it was very well received, but that doesn't mean I don't want to know what specifically you liked or didn't like, or your thoughts on the plot, the characters, the inclusion of the AI elements, the religious elements, the politics, etc. I want to hear about it all. Thank you so much for joining me this week. I hope you'll join me next week for 73 Yards. And if you haven't, if you want, I did do a review of Space Babies and The Devil's Cord, which I'll link somewhere up here. Anyway, thank you for joining me. I hope you enjoyed the episode. If you didn't, and even if you did, I hope you're staying safe, happy, and healthy. I hope you're having a great day, night, whatever time it is for you. And see you next week. Bye.